All right, welcome to Game of the Month Club at Babycastles.
Chex Quest!
My name is Karl Hohn. This is Ethan Beach, and we're going to talk about this cereal box game. First, we're going to show this little 8-minute documentary that Chex just put out.
Chex Quest was history's largest single mass replication ever. Not before nor since has anybody replicated 6 million CDs off a single glass master all at once. We're in the dot-com era. This is the early 90s, and nobody knows what's possible. And so what you would do is you would sell whatever you hadn't seen anybody do before, and then we'd go back and have these meetings. It's like, well, can we do that? But we'd figure it out every time. Chex Quest was a total gamble. The original idea was a very simple, it could have been something we did in 2 weeks. The game idea that they had something to do with you're in a cornfield and you've got a flashlight and there were ghosts in the cornfield. They went down the standard path. Let's make something educational. Let's teach nutrition in a fun game way. And I remember Mike Koenig's coming down to my office and saying, Dean, you've got 24 hours to come up with a better idea. We wanted to make a first-person shooter game that could fit in a cereal box because we knew that's what the kids would want. So I stayed up all night and I came up with the idea of Chex Quest. And I started scripting scenes. You're basically sending these evil creatures back where they came from. So that was the non-violent premise.
None of us really knew what a game launch was even going to be like.
This had something that most of our other projects didn't. A 6-month time frame was like double what we usually get.
This was asked to be produced in as short a time as I could possibly imagine a game being made.
Part of it was the illusion that we had an incredible amount of time. We got 6 months.
I was definitely skeptical, but I kept that to myself.
We had a tiny team of people. We had like 6 people. We took the budget to make a small airplane and we had our sights set on getting to the moon. We had to get FDA approval. Nobody had FDA approval to put a CD-ROM, a cereal box. So we had to get special approval to do that. It was hard. It was hard. It was just a never-ending series of things that needed to be done. We decided the shortcut would be to license the Doom engine from id. And they thought it was cool. It was like, wow, that's an innovative use of our engine.
The fact that you could walk around these environments, that was like VR at the time, right?
It really is Doom with a facelift. The gameplay is unchanged. It's just the graphics and the sounds and the layout of the levels are different.
It was a huge boon. It sped up the process. It bought us a year. This was a huge, real game. We made like 13 levels of the game. There were 3D environments that all had to fit in with the story.
One of the mandates that came down to us was that these cannot look like traditional guns. We had to sort of design things that looked like remote controls or tricorders that someone in Star Trek would use. I would do quite a bit of just actual physical drawing, scan that, manipulate it in Photoshop.
We had to basically find the lowest common denominator sound card and write to that. Pretty much every sound, like if you had an accordion sound or a violin sound or a synth sound, sounded kind of percussive. It led to a different kind of music. Sometimes limitations are the best thing for you because when you can do anything, it's hard to stay focused.
We had to get into their code, understand it, modify it quickly, and we would not have much time to test it. We found the most brilliant secret weapon on the planet. His name is Scott Holman. He was 17 in high school. The company's sitting and waiting for 3:30. It's like, oh, we can't start until school's out. School gets out, somebody go get Scott Holman. Scott Holman comes in here. He starts programming. He works until 11:30. If you talk to a professional, they will tell you why you can't get it done. If you need to get it done anyway, look for a teenager. Once we had the game,
Not so vaguely exploitative, yeah.
It was mostly us playing the game all the time.
I was a beta tester, I guess, towards the end, exploring levels and making sure that there were no spots where people would get stuck forever.
testing for us was, well, let's try it on all the computers in the office, which is about 8. Seems like it's working. Let's send it off for 6 million replications.
We literally drove the CD to the FedEx at the airport to be replicated, and then just held our breath.
Everybody just sat there wide-eyed because we're terrified of finding a critical bug after burning 6 million discs. This was so scary.
You just didn't know, is this stable? Is it gonna crash? Did it achieve what we were going for? Let alone, like, is it good?
I remember walking through the store, seeing the cereal aisle, and just taking a breath. They had Chex characters glued to the floor, and my heart beat a little faster, because at this point, no one knew for sure yet if the game was going to work the way we'd hoped, but it was an exhilarating moment. 6 million copies in 6 million boxes of cereal. They were gone in 6 weeks. And Chex cereal sales went up 248%. Chex cereal was happening.
I remember when I first heard that number, just kind of being blown away and having this realization that the music that I'm creating right now is going to get more exposure than any other music out there, which has absolutely been the truth.
The only way anything good ever happens is if someone loves it. Everyone thought this project was special.
There have been plenty of advert games, but very few of them have had any legs. So I've had many community members approach me telling me this was their first game they played as a kid.
People actually did spend hours playing Chex Quest, and when they think back to their childhood, you know, there's a lot of great memories that people tell us about.
We gave parents an option. It was in one way tame, but it was exactly the experience that the kids wanted to have.
The Chex Quest modding community has been incredibly active from the very minute the game was released.
Fans, who are those 8-year-old kids who are now grown up and programming things of their own, had gotten a pool of people together to make Chex Quest 3 because they still wanted to play it more.
When you send something to millions and millions of people, and 0.01% of people get way into it, that's a lot of people.
You know, for me, this has always just been a hobby. So a lot of people have the car in the garage that they fixed up. They've got their beautiful garden they work in. I go upstairs and I work on games.
I think that Chex Quest for some people was that nostalgia piece where you kind of forget about it for a while and then you come back to it and you go, yeah, I remember that, and that was actually pretty fun. I think there's a good chance that you'll be able to, 20 years from now, still be able to download and play Chex Quest. I think we're all super proud to be a part of that.
I still, to this day, occasionally get a fan message. And what could be more rewarding than that?
I think that's. Yeah, so that definitely does fill in sort of like a lot of the salient background details. Chex Quest is a 1996 released Doom mod that's themed around cereal and was distributed in boxes of Chex cereal. That's the short answer. Here's the original intro sequence. This is one of my favorite bits of cinema.
A volcano exploded on planet Berserk, as of rock into space. One of these asteroids was captured by the squadron and brought to our lab. We were investigating these globules as proof of cellular life on other planets, and we discovered that they actually contain eggs to an evil cereal-eating creature from another dimension. We call them flemoids. When eggs are exposed to nutritional substances, the eggs hatch.
Preposterous. We have a nutritional development center in the caverns of Bezoik. They're growing fruit and vegetables, and they haven't had any trouble.
General, 2 days ago we lost contact with Bezoik. We can only assume the flemoids have taken over. To make matters worse, we have found that conventional weapons seem to have no effect on flammons.
We need a volunteer to fly to the caverns of Bezoik and attempt a rescue of our citizens there.
That's ridiculous.
We need a volunteer.
Yeah, so that came off this very copy. Big thanks to John Bruno for selling this to me. And y'all can pass this around and take a look. You got that out of a box of cereal in 1996. Yeah. Well, if we're going to talk about Chex Quest, I think that the best place to start is the invention of box cereal. In 1906, we get Corn Flakes, which were actually invented by Dr. John Kellogg, who started the Battle Creek Sanitarium and invented Corn Flakes because he thought that if people had more of a bland food in their diet, they would be less inclined to masturbate. And this is true. And masturbate. And he thought that masturbation was the source of everything, like all of humanity's medical ills. His brother William realized that the cereal was good, and if you cut out the weird stuff, you could sell it to people. So they had kind of a schism. And in 1906, William Kellogg separates from his brother John and starts just selling boxes of toasted corn flakes to the public. 1 year later, he puts a prize in the box. This is the Funny Jungle Land Moving Pictures book. It is from 1907, as you can see. This actually wasn't in the box itself, but this was the promotion was that it was a point of sale promotion. So if you bought 2 boxes of Kellogg's Corn Flakes, the cashier would give you this book. And it's actually pretty cool as sort of like an artifact of like the earliest days of film, because, you know, they call it the Moving Pictures book. The way that they do that is it opens sort of into this triple fold, and there are these, and it's all cut into these strips so that you can put different heads on different bodies and different feet and like mix and match all these characters. And it's very 19-teens, like here are these, you know, these queer fellows, the cow, horse, and deer. And of course it's all for the purpose still of selling cornflakes, very transparently. Sing from daylight until night, sing from dark until it's light, Kellogg's cornflakes every morn, it's the sweet heart of the corn. And this book was extremely popular. In 1909 they shifted towards selling it as mail order, but they did booming business. They reprinted this like 3 times. And the rest of the cereal industry, as it caught up, starts including prizes as a promotional thing pretty early on, which kind of makes sense when it's a new product and you're trying to entice people to buy something that they've never tried before and everything. But so General Mills has these Skippy cards. It's the first prize that General Mills ever included in a box. I'm a little unclear as to whether or not this was inside the box or whether this was like printed on the cardboard and you cut it out. I think it's that you cut it out, but there was a series of 12, and Skippy was like this character that does stuff. It's like, you know, encouraging kids to go outside and be active. Eats 2 big bowls full of Wheaties every day. They're big golden brown flakes of real whole wheat that you eat with milk or cream and sugar to help keep you warm. That's a little, I'm not sure what the, you know, validity of that claim is.
I guess if you eat enough, you gain weight and then you're warmer.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what that means.
What's generally accepted as the first cereal box prize is Pep pins, Pep badges. These were in boxes of Kellogg's Pep cereal in 1945. They're really simple pin-back badges, like exactly the same kind of pin back buttons you would see today. And they just had famous cartoon characters of the day on them. The full collection, there was something like 84 of these that were made. Different kinds that were made that you could collect. The first food-related prize to really make a big splash, though, are decoder badges, which were created by the Ovaltine Company in 1935. This is a 1936 example. This was in cross-promotion with the Little Orphan Annie radio show, which was sponsored by Ovaltine. In 1934, the cipher was just printed in literature, but in 1935, they were like, oh, we could actually merchandise this and make a little thing, and they made this badge that's got the cipher wheels. And these were wildly popular. Ovaltine kept that sponsorship going until 1940. They then moved to another radio show called, I think, Captain Midnight, and did decoder badges with that as well. They're not very big. They're about the size of a quarter, but these became very ubiquitous. All sorts of companies started running with these. In 1960, PF Flyers Sneakers does a Johnny Quest promotion where they put one of these decoder ciphers on a ring. And that's where we get the trope of the decoder ring. One of the biggest tropes that we have of the 60s, plastics. And so these kinds of decoder rings became incredibly cheap and easy to make out of plastics, including the ones that were boxed in Chex cereal. The ring base itself is just made of plastic, and then it's just a paper disc glued to the top and another paper disc floating freely so that you can rotate the letters and match them up and that kind of thing. So yeah, sort of the 1950s and 60s are kind of something of a golden age of cereal box prizes because nobody's regulating it and plastics are brand new. So you get all kinds of crazy prizes. You get, army men, you get parachute army men, you get matchbox cars, they made these little plastic submarines that you could put a pinch of baking soda inside and it would sink, and then as the soda fizzed, it would raise it back up again. I also found this Chex Rubik's Cube from the 80s, which has fruits on it also because it's, part of a balanced breakfast. But the Rubik's Cube is one of the big trends of the 80s, right? And the video games are also one of the big trends of the 80s. And advertising games start to pop up pretty much right away. They tend to mostly be for the Atari 2600. You see examples for Coleco and for Intellivision, but most tend to be for Atari, at least the ones that I'm interested in talking about tonight. Chase the Chuck Wagon is Ralston Purina's first game, the company that manufactured Chex. In the early 80s, they had a TV commercial campaign that was like a little dog chasing a tiny covered wagon under a sink. They referenced it in the beginning of Spinal Tap. But they made a video game out of that, where you play as the dog, and you're in this maze, and you have to get out and get to the Chuck Wagon.
Is that advertising dog food or human?
Dog food.
Dog food, yeah.
This is advertising Purina dog food, but it's the same company.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's going to get out of the... I think that this guy's throwing a Frisbee at you to, distract you because you're a dog. But, yeah, so that's a level. That's a level cleared.
Is that set under the kitchen sink like you were talking about?
I don't think so.
Is that supposed to be outside because there's a wagon?
I think it's just in a maze.
Just in a maze, all right. In a black void.
Yeah. The one that seems sort of the most worth referencing of the Atari era is Pepsi Invaders. So this is a ROM hack of Space Invaders that was commissioned by Coca-Cola. And they only made 125 copies, and it was distributed in unlabeled cartridges at a trade show in 1983. It's one of the most rare Atari games there is. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is it's the first example I could find of an advert game that was made by taking a pre-existing game and reskinning it. The next example that's extremely popular is Yo-Noid. Yo-Noid, so there was a game in Japan, a Japanese Nintendo game called Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru, that when part of the licensing deal to localize it for America was let's just have Domino's branded. So that's how Yo-Noid happens. And you get this platforming game. There's like a pizza eating. Yeah, here's the pizza eating mini game. But it's platforming with little mini games that were everything was re-themed to be about pizza. And I think that it could be argued that this in some ways constitutes a mod. It's definitely adjacent to a mod. But so at this point we're into the early 90s and we should probably start talking about Doom. Doom comes out in 1993 and it makes a huge splash. It had several successful properties under its belt already, but Doom makes a huge splash. It's banned on college campuses because too many kids are flooding the school servers to play multiplayer games. It's banned in companies for the same reason. It immediately sort of finds itself at the center of the violent video game debate because of its violent content and because of its occult content, which people said was satanic. And all this drives sales. Doom 2 comes out a year later. But so Doom and Doom 2 are both really successful right out of the gate. And right out of the gate, they also both spawn a really big community of people modding and building their own levels. So by the time that 1996, when Chex Quest becomes an idea, there's already a big community of Doom modders. id has just released Quake in 1996, and so to them, one of the reasons that they were giving people deals to license the Doom engine was because Quake had just come out. So they were like, "Oh, this old thing? Just take it, like we'll sell it to you for a song." And so that's how Chex Quest ended up. That's part of why Chex Quest ended up settling on the Doom engine. It's funny that they went with the sci-fi theme, considering that that was familiar ground for them. In 1950, they sponsored a television show called Space Patrol. I'll just play this.
Travel into the future with Buzz Torrey, Commander-in-Chief of the Space Patrol. Right checks and good hot rum.
Yeah, I guess Ralston was the hot cereal. The MO behind picking Doom as the engine, though, is that making a game using the Doom engine was cheap, it was fast, and it was easy. You had a big community of modders already that you could pull from, the tools were all there. They couldn't have turned this game around in 6 months, probably, without using something like the Doom engine. Which is probably why the US Marines had the same idea in 1996 and made Marine Doom. The U.S. Marines were kind of strapped for cash around 1996, and so as a training tool, they built a Doom mod. And this
horrible.
It's kind of. I think it's kind of funny that
it like animates into the old.
Yeah, it's the HUD's the same, and and the weapons are mostly this. Like most of the weapons are the same except for the rifles. Like the rifles are newer and more realistic.
It's just funny when he shoots it, when he cocks it, it turns to the old one.
Yeah. But I find it funny that sort of in the same year, two different organizations licensed the same engine to do completely opposite things with it. One trying to be real, get all the, say that it's not violent, and one trying to be like, no, we actually need to
glamorize murder. Yeah.
Well, or portray it realistically for the sake of training people to kill. So obviously Chex Quest is kind of like the polar opposite of Marine Doom. Here's some concept art. This is pretty early concept art. You can see that this sort of has something that was more of a traditional gun form factor. This was changed, obviously, as they said in the documentary, to be something that would seem less like an actual weapon and more like a remote control. The other concept that they were throwing around, their first concept was the teleport thing. They also floated an idea of throwing that sort of like the enemies were sort of like represented malnutrition, and you would neutralize them by throwing like fruit at them and nutritious food. But Ralston was afraid that would encourage kids to have food fights, so they went back to the teleporting concept. You can also see that in the original concept art here, which looks pretty close in a lot of ways, but you can see that the Flemoids were originally supposed to be yellow, and the only reason that they came out green in the final project had something to do with like limitations of the color palette of the engine. They couldn't find the right shade of yellow, so they made them green instead, which makes them seem more mucusy anyway, in my mind.
Green is more fun. Kids like Nickelodeon slime.
Yeah, it does make them like Nickelodeon slime. But the sound design is also particularly like the noises that the Flemoids make are just completely unhinged, and so like they just do these weird, crazy noises. And so I wanted to find out what I could, and I found this quote that it was just Dean Hires and Andrew Benson just sitting in the sound booth acting like little kids. I don't think there was any specific inspiration. So those are two of the people that we saw in that little documentary. The guy with the glasses, like sort of like imagine him just going like "Wah!" like making these weird noises. But that also sounds to me like something that you do when you're like, punch drunk and under the deadline and like, coming up on a deadline and you haven't slept in a few days and you just need to get a thing done, but you get loopy.
It also sounds like a temp track that they just left in or something.
Oh no, that's the final.
Yeah, I know, but that's like the process sounds like it.
Right. But so 6-month development cycle. They print 6 million copies. Some places I read 5 million. They say in the movie, in the video, 6 million. I don't remember which one it is. But 6 is nice because then you get like made in 6 months, 6 million copies sold out in 6 weeks. That's kind of cool. But so there's a big advertising campaign.
Is that it?
Yeah, this is it.
marks the spot. The one-of-a-kind part of this complete breakfast. Now you can get a free CD worm game inside boxes of Chex cereals. Help Chex Man battle the Playboys and save the planet with One free in specially marked boxes of Chex cereals.
So, this how does this campaign go? Very good. It's incredibly successful. 6 million copies sold in 6 weeks. But so pretty much right away, Ralston's like, oh, we got to do a Chex Quest 2 because they're suddenly getting a lot of traffic to ChexQuest.com. So the whole reason that they commissioned Chex Quest 2 is to continue driving traffic to ChexQuest.com. They release the levels one at a time in order to sort of like continue driving traffic. But it's very, very rushed, and Chex Quest 2 is not received anywhere near as well as Chex Quest 1 was. The levels, they suffered from being rushed. Also, around this time, RALCorp gets bought out by General Mills. So the brand changes hands. The sale was announced at the end of 96. This article is from December 96. The sale happens in like mid-97. And so there never really were plans announced for a Chex Quest 3 officially, but this kind of like puts the nail in the coffin for that. But we start to get other cereal box games pretty much right away. This is Captain Crunch's Crunchling Adventure from 1999. Definitely does not have the same cult following that Chex Quest has. But it's fun. I don't know, it looks fun. I haven't played it. It looks okay, though. You're on a planet where you have to mine an element that you use to make Captain Crunch. And these little Crunchlings who kind of look like...
Zumbinis.
Yeah, they do look like the Zumbinis. But you just have to or the Fraggles, or Fraggle Rock.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to level them up by playing these mini games.
There's a Gatorade in there too.
Everything in the world is like mirror image except for all the other product placement. Yeah. So like, the text on like the other stuff will be backwards, but the product placement will be readable. So you keep playing these mini games to sort of like level them up until you beat a boss. But so right around the same time, they mentioned in the documentary that the fans got together to create their own Chex Quest 3. That's what's called the stolen version. This was released in 2001, and this was a project where basically they cobbled together a bunch of Doom modders, took levels from other pre-existing Doom mods, made it an expansion that ran on top of the original Chex Quest so that it would have that character art, and claimed that it was an unreleased beta that they had stolen from General Mills. So like when it spits you back out at the DOS prompt at the end of the game, it says like copyright 2001 General Mills. Around this time also, you start to see a lot less physical pack-in prizes in cereal boxes. It's just not a thing that happens as much. If you read about this on the internet, you'll see a lot of articles that claim it has to do with legislation against marketing sugary cereals to kids, but I was not really able to find any proof of any such litigation that had ever happened. There were certain toys that were recalled for being a choking hazard. There was Kellogg's in 2004. Kellogg's put a Spider-Man watch in a box of cereal, but the watch had a mercury-powered battery, and so that got recalled. And there have been, I was able to find a few like FTC studies about marketing to children and stuff like that, but no real hard legislation of like states handing down laws saying you can't do that. Really, what happened more in general was just a switch towards online content and downloadable content. It's cheaper to not have to manufacture a physical product and put it in your box, and however many people there are in the world that have internet access can get to your things. So you start to see things like My Coke. This is a completely reskinned version of Habbo Hotel that was done from 2002. So this is a online world with little avatars. And there was a branded currency in game, and and the idea was it was trading music stuff. So you were like buying and selling music to each other. And this stayed up until 2007, when it got merged into a competing digital world called, I think, Them, which closed, I believe, in 2010. So the next sort of like big successful one, you get the Burger King games in 2006.
I had those.
And I mean, racer games and bumper car games, these are pretty stock things, like pretty standard. The Sneak King interaction, it was like you had sort of you had to sneak around and give people burgers, but they had this kind of cone of vision that you had to stay out of. Also, at this point, if we loop back to the Doom community, by the mid-2000s, or the early mid-2000s, ZDoom is kind of pulling ahead as the dominant open-source Doom engine. It came out in '98, and it's specifically most of the major Chex Quest fan projects are done in ZDoom from here on out. There's a project called The Ultimate Chex Quest. This was started in 2003, and actually development kept going until 2014. It was an attempt to basically do a fan-made HD remake of Chex Quest with new textures and all that kind of thing. And the idea was to add some new levels. That's kind of the idea. There was also a game called The New Chex Quest, made by a guy called Manny Cav, who kind of was at one point kind of like the major player on like the Chex Quest fan forums. And so this is kind of a similar thing of him doing like kind of like his own personal HD remaster of the game from the ground up. So this has all been kind of building for a while. Like the Chex Quest fan community is really at its peak right around this time, around 2007, 2008. And that's the environment in which Charles Jacoby, the original developer, puts out the official Chex Quest 3. He partners with Scott Holman, the original programmer, and Andrew Benson, the original music composer, and they do it in ZDoom. They take the opportunity to go back and redo Chex Quest 1 and 2. They do a pretty significant overhaul of Chex Quest 2, and the original version of Chex Quest 2 is completely different than the one that's included with Chex Quest 3, and this is definitely the superior version. But this is entirely a personal project, and it honestly seems to be, it's kind of like the last major splash in the Chex Quest modding community. The Chex Quest fan forum, as I was looking through it, the amount of new projects kind of starts to slow to a trickle over the course of 2009 to 2012. The last new mod was posted in 2015, and this is a screenshot of it.
Dr. Walrusstein.
This guy's got a good avatar. But it's to the point, I asked on Discord, in the Discord for another Doom mod, about Chex Quest, and someone just said, Chex Quest is dead. But in the intervening time, we've started to see other Doom mods have come out that definitely display the influence of Chex Quest. This is a game called The Adventures of Square. It's a GZ Doom or ZDoom game. It's paintballing, but everyone is just shapes. So all the weapons are sort of, the character models are really funny and cute and like MS Paint looking. The weapons all shoot paint. Everyone is just made of paint, so when characters die, they just explode into these piles of paint. So it's kind of like, the same kind of tongue-in-cheek, like, it's gore, but it's not gore kind of effect. This game was made by a bunch of people that are like old heads in the Doom modding scene. The lead the creative director of this project is a guy called Jimmy Paddock, who, his other big project recently was he did all the MIDI music for Sigil, for John Romero's most recent Doom WAD. But it's, you can't look at this and say that Chex Quest hasn't, you can't look at this and say that you can't see Chex Quest in there. But this game is really good. You should definitely download it. There's also a game called Gloombusters. This is a reskin of Doom 1 and 2 by one of my favorite modders called Skelligant. Skelligant made the Lawnmower Doom mod where you're Hank Hill on your riding mower drinking beers. She also made the Kirby Doom mod where you can inhale an enemy and gain their weapon. But she made this, where it's the same thing, sort of like, I think that everything is kind of like these candy-colored things. All the health upgrades and stuff have become candies, like milkshakes for health and stuff. And when you see like sort of like all of these people have been possessed by sort of like negative vibes, and when you shoot them with these guns, which I wonder if I can get some sound here, because that's like the Star Wars gun, right? All the guns make like toy gun sounds. When you hit them, what you're doing is like you're purifying their soul and releasing the bad vibes. Oh yeah, and also the grenades are cans of Coke that you shake up and throw. So there you go. Yeah, and so they'll like thank you after you shoot them and stuff. Also, all the levels are named after vaporwave albums. So like instead of Knee Deep in the Inferno, it's called Floral Shop. Things like that. So Gloombusters came out in 2016. 2016 is also the year that Charles Jacoby first announced this HD remake. He started making this HD version of Chex Quest because he needed as a personal project in order to learn Unreal Engine. There was an interview for the 20-year anniversary of Chex Quest in 2016 where he talked about it, and he alluded to the fact that he'd started working on it. The original interview is gone, but there are still sort of, you can find like the PC Gamer and Ars Technica blog posts that link to it. And that's where I found this screen cap. But sort of by this time, we're talking about now, right? We're talking about the last few years. And if we switch back to advert games, we've seen really a switch towards web and mobile games in advert games. So advert games have generally shifted towards web and mobile. And also, they're marketing differently for, like, games aren't used as a way to target kids anymore. Games are used as a way to target 90s kids. Games are used as it's designed to be retro nostalgia for targeting the millennials. So you start to see things like the Crystal Pepsi Trail.
How do you promote the return of a soda?
I'm just going to play this whole thing because it's very
since 1992. Create a new version of the most radical computer game of our millennial fans' childhoods. The Oregon Trail, 1992 Deluxe Edition. Duh. The Crystal Pepsi Trail challenged fans to prove their love of nostalgia on an epic journey to bring clear cola back to the people. Dysentery was traded for dial-up. Hunting wild buffalo became hunting for wild buffalo wings.
Awesome!
Pixels were painstakingly pushed for months, matching the original game's 8-bit
No, this
style.
is from Vimeo,
Dope
but
90s collaborators joined us on the journey.
It's from the agency that made the game.
Jenko Jeans to me, beloved game show host Mark Summers. We became fluent in 90s slang. Oh, snap. We then built a game and its website true to 90s era coding styles. And FYI, our fans noticed every last detail, praising our web rings and marquees on Reddit. Average time spent on the site was 8 minutes, a record for any millennial attention span. Fans remained psyched throughout the campaign. Social posts indicated multiple purchases, with many begging us to bring Crystal Pepsi back again next summer.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, yeah, but so there's also, so this is sort of where you're going to start seeing more things like Chex Quest is as companies try to make a game like that game you remember from your childhood. That's also what Pocket Morty's is doing. Pocket Morty's is the smartphone game that's literally just Pokemon, but Rick and Morty branded. This isn't limited to just like sort of, you know, to the retro appeal, the pixel art appeal, or the sort of, you know, the alternative Adult Swim audience. Hermes Handbags made a smartphone game called H-Pitch that is with like 5 H's. It's a horseshoe tossing game.
I thought you were gonna say it's horse shit.
No, it's I mean, yeah, that too. No, but it's a horseshoe game. They show a screen from it for like a second in it at the end here. Yeah, this is what they're using to sell handbags is this game. Yeah. This is to sell Hermes handbags. And that sort of brings us to now. So that's what's happening with this reboot of Chex Quest. Is really it's General Mills taking one guy's passion project from the last 20 years and literally just cashing in on it by saying like this is 90, you know, this we can code up a 90s website and remind people about this game that they played 25 years ago. We can make it look all cutesy and early HTML. And we'll get some downloads. This download link links literally straight to the same download that Charles Jacoby's had up since 2008. This link goes to chucktropolis.com. The poster's cool though. This is the guy that did the art for the Mega Man US box art, like the legendarily bad, his legs in the wrong place Mega Man box art. But really, I think that sort of like, you know, I mean, Charles Jacoby's been working on Chex Quest HD for 3 years already, right? I thought it would be fitting to close with the trailer for Chex Quest HD, because it's slated to come out later this year, and it really is sort of like, it is an advert game, but really it's not. It's one guy's personal passion project based on an advert game he made 25 years ago, and there's something interesting in that, but also just because you'll see.
Graphics are mind blowing.
It's the same audio.
It's the exact same audio.
We were investigating these globules as proof of cell life on other planets, and we discovered that they actually contain eggs to an evil cell-eating creature from another dimension. We call them flemoids. Eggs are exposed to nutritional substances. The eggs hatch.
So is this sort of like the UN of cereals?
Yes. It is. It's called the United Cereals.
Oh.
It's a level in Chex Quest 3.
They're fruit and vegetables, and they haven't had any trouble.
General, 2 days ago we lost contact with Bazoik. We can only assume the flemoids have taken over.
To make matters worse, we have found that conventional weapons seem to have no effect on flemoids.
We need a volunteer to fly to the caverns of Bazoik and attempt a rescue of our citizens there.
That's ridiculous. What soldier would be fool enough to enter a cavern full of unstoppable flemoids from another dimension? By recalibrating the phase frequency of our soldiers to match that of our transporters, we can send the flemoids back to their own dimension.
We need a volunteer.
I'm from Chex Squadron. I volunteer.
We get a little gameplay footage at the end here too.
Is this music by the original?
Yep. And those are the original sound effects.
Your height is now like inside your chest.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.